I'm speaking to Jani, the founder of Grow Today, a Claygency that scaled from zero to over $1 million in annual recurring revenue in just under 1 year.
We got semi-famous for hitting $1 million in year recurring revenue in about 12 months. After a couple of weeks of working with him, I closed the biggest deal in the history of Growth Today from just like a pure numbers perspective. How I got to start Growth Today was being let go twice in a row, which was a terrible experience. We are a Clay and outbound and RevOps agency. We've been around for about 2 years. Typically, we work with B2B SaaS companies. 90% of our revenue is coming from B2B SaaS companies, mainly in the US. You can get to about 30 to 50,000 MRR without productization if you know your shit, but then it's just going to be a chaos. If your goal is to build a business, build a team, build an agency, your role as a founder and CEO is to replace yourself.
In today's video, I'm speaking to Jani, the founder of Grow Today, a Claygency that scaled from zero to over $1 million in annual recurring revenue in just under 1 year. And the purpose of this video is for us to just have an open discussion about what it takes in order to, first of all, start a Claygency, what kind of hires you need to make, how you need to structure your client acquisition, your client onboarding process, and how you can create some scalable service delivery that's not reliant on you working 24/7. So if you want to tune into this video, by all means do so. Use the timestamps down below because I spent a bunch of time putting the timestamps together. Also worth noting that any topics that are covered on a surface level, like creating pricing, creating proposals, hiring or finding a good go-to-market engineer, all of these, alongside the shout outs that we mention throughout this video, will be accessible in the top link in the description down below, so that you can just basically opt into that guide and it will have a plethora of different topics and resources that we talk about, so that you don't need to just all of a sudden start Googling different names that we discuss throughout this conversation. Now, if you enjoy this episode, by all means, let me know, and I will turn this into a series where I plan to interview a bunch of the top Claygency thought leaders, be it great go-to-market engineers, Claygency owners, or anyone else that I find interesting and anyone else that I look up to in the Clay space. Other than that, let's jump right into the interview. Jani, welcome. You're in the first episode today, joining me on this podcast where we're going to be talking about Claygency growth. So for those of you that may not know Jani just yet, I just want you, Jani, to just give us a quick introduction.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Jani. I am the co-founder and CEO of Growth Today. We are a Clay and outbound and RevOps agency. We've been around for about 2 years. We got semi-famous for hitting $1 million in year recurring revenue in about 12 months in the beginning. And yeah, I think, typically we work with B2B SaaS companies, but also trying to venture out into other fields. But I would say our bread and butter, like 90% of our revenue is coming from B2B SaaS companies, mainly in the US.
That's quite the stereotype, right? With most like lead generation or Clay agencies out there, like most of them would have that sweet spot of B2B SaaS. Do you just want to give us a quick rundown of what you've done before starting the agency and the reason for starting it in the first place?
How I got to start Growth Today was being let go twice in a row, which was a terrible experience. Don't recommend it to anyone, but it's always the same kind of startup story. Raised a bunch of money. We tripled the team, but just at that hyper growth stage, we did too many things too quickly. We lost our product market fit a little bit, and then we had to just lay off vast majority of people. So I was impacted twice in about 11 months. And then I was in a lucky position where I could take some time off. Essentially, I took a couple of months trying to figure out what I really want to do in my life. And that was around the time when Clay started to become a thing. Briggy sent it over to me. We took a look at it, and she was the one who was running outbound for 5 years before Clay was a thing. It just made things so much easier and so much quicker. And we said, okay, this is it. This is what we want to do. We immediately saw the impact that Clay will have on the market and on the processes that we've been doing previously. And yeah, that's how we really got started out. She was already pretty hands-on with this. I had to learn it. I was doing slightly different types of roles. So how I really got started was with Nathan's Clay Bootcamp. It was 2023 December. I got it. I applied. It was pretty early at the time as well. I got in. I did it, and then essentially just in the very early days, just our network and our like B2B SaaS network and the Clay hype really got us started and like kicked us off.
Mm, awesome. And I mean, you mentioned having a co-founder, so a lot of people would know Brie already, I think, from LinkedIn, and that's how I came across you, and that's how I came across her in the first place, right? Like you guys posting on LinkedIn, all of these like addictive-looking lead magnets, where you just
Yeah.
comment underneath the lead magnet to get some random prompts or whatever, someone gives away. How do you find working with a co-founder comparing to, the option I'm sure you would have considered in the first place of just doing everything solo? So what are some of the benefits? What are some drawbacks?
I mean, the only drawback is you have to share the pie, right? In the grand scheme of things, I think there are only benefits to having a co-founder. Doing everything on your own, I think it's just tough. Like as especially as like you can get started on your own in the early days and maybe move a little bit more quickly or accelerate in like the first couple of months, but as you start building a team, as you start having more clients that you can individually handle, it just goes out of control. So having a co-founder who's like a sounding board, who you can discuss your strategy with, and when you have tough challenges, it's just better to have outside perspectives from
Mhm.
your like own little bubble. And we are kind of similar in a sense that like we're both kind of workaholic. We are like we are in the grand scheme of things, we are good at the same things in a sense that like we're like system thinkers and like we have similar goals in a sense that we want to grow the agency, but we also complement each other. And when you find that right co-founder who have the same vision, but you can like you complement each other's skill set. I think that's the golden ticket. And yeah, I if I was like thinking about starting a new company, I would definitely want to do it with a co-founder.
Yeah, yeah, no, I can 100% like resonate with what you're saying there because like whenever I started, well, B2B boosted, even like I mean the education side of the business, I don't really I still look at it as like a passion project. I don't look at it as like a
Mm,
business per se. But on the agency side, it's so much harder when you're doing everything solo because you almost need a sounding board. So be it you paying for some consulting sessions or you trying
there are
to read
just
like 10 books or whatever,
too
or
yeah,
you speak
just
to
too
someone,
many.
right? Like about all of that stuff. So it's yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sorry for cutting you off. There's just too many things to do at the same time. Like if like yeah, to some extent you can be good at doing sales and doing marketing and doing your operations and doing your finances and managing a team and talking to clients, but after a while it just gets too much. And there is a point where like when you get started, I think there's a strong and very distinct difference between being an actual business and being an entrepreneur and being a freelancer or like creating a well-paid job for yourself. And I was like a little bit in that kind of situation where if I wouldn't really have my co-founder, I would probably be in the same situation where I created a well-paying job for myself, but I'm not really an entrepreneur. I'm not building a team. I'm not building systems. I'm just like treating water day in, day out for like a big paycheck. But I
Mhm.
don't think that's the way to go. Like that for a lot of people, being a freelancer might be the right choice. For me, it would get lonely. It would get too tough to do it on my own, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's that distinction where it's a very blurry line, right? Because anyone can start their own business, but low key, you could just be a freelancer doing it still on an hourly or project basis or whatever it is. So I think, yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely resonate. What would you say? Because I know you worked in sales for what, like at least like 5 years before starting Gross Today. So what would you say was the main challenge that you were there to solve initially? Because you mentioned Bree was focused a lot on like doing outbound before. So was your main focus originally just pure lead generation via cold email, I assume?
Well, no, not exactly. Well, when I say I was like in these types of roles, I was also doing more like general marketing and growth and partnerships, which was mainly I was doing tech partnerships, which is building the integrations and then doing the co-selling part. So it was like an indirect sales motion. My biggest challenge essentially, or the thing that I had to learn and the thing that I broke first was actually our sales process because because of my background is more marketing, and not really like actual sales. And I don't think I'm like a natural salesperson. So I had to fail a lot. I had to lose a lot of deals. And I had to consult some amazing people who helped me, put me on the right track. So that was like the biggest hurdle that I personally had to overcome, how to be an actual salesperson. And right now I am the only one and only salesperson on the team. That might change very soon. But yeah, so far it's a founder-led sales motion that we have, which is great. I think you should focus on that as long as you can. There's just going to be a tipping point where you become the bottleneck yourself. And I think we are at that stage right now.
Got And when you talk about learning sales, who are your go-to people when it comes to like if you had to suggest to someone else who's just trying to pick up sales, understand how to create sales scripts, who are your go-to people for that? Before you answer the question, I'll say on my side, like for instance, Victor, who you used to work with, I'll make sure to link him down below underneath the video. He's great. I learned so much stuff about uncovering pain points, the kind of sales script structure, super basic stuff like Corey Bray is great as well. There are a couple of these guys that I'll make sure to put in the guide down below, which, people can just click on the link and get it
Yeah.
down below. But Yanni, any other people that stood out to you when it comes to, picking up sales and really learning the principles and all of that good
Yeah,
stuff?
I've got three. Victor is one of them. I used to work with him. He's amazing. His expertise, I think, really shines though in an enterprise setting where you have a larger team that you want to manage and train. But I learned a ton from him. The second, he was our first consultant when we got started. Is Mark Colgan. I don't know if you know him.
Oh yes, he's fantastic. I met him at Clay London. We spoke to him for ages. So yeah, he will be getting his mention in the guide as well, I'm sure.
Great. Yeah, Mark Hogan is amazing and helped us in the very early days when I felt like, okay, this is out of control. I don't know what I'm doing. Mark helped us a lot. And then the third one is Justin Michael. He's also a consultant. I consulted with him for a couple months. After a couple of weeks of working with him, I closed the biggest deal in the history of growth today from just like a pure numbers perspective. I think that's a pretty good testament. He's just great to work with. So yeah, these are Victor, Mark, Justin. These are the guys I would recommend.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's great because I think like with the blind spots, the first natural step that's the hardest in the first place for running any sort of like agency business, right? Is just getting clients through the door. And if you know how to lead those sales calls and have, all the structures in place, I'm sure, that will set someone on the right path. What would you say, like at what point did you realize like you were doing all of this as just a pure service, but it wasn't exactly scalable per se? Because a lot of folks that I speak to, myself included right now, right? Sometimes I run an offer and I then realize like, okay, cool, we could probably set up like 5 outbound campaigns to test message market fit in 30 days or whatever it is, but it's not scalable beyond just me doing it myself. So at what point did you figure that one out?
Well, for a lot of time, I was proud of the fact that we are an outbound agency that doesn't run our own outbound. And then I realized that's kind of backwards because if we're not really good at doing it for ourselves, then how can we be good for doing it for someone else? Well, we were. Our primary channel was, well, in the very early days, it was referrals. Both Briggy and I had most of our experience was in e-commerce SaaS. That was the space where that we knew. When you get started, you don't really need things to scale. Like you just need to tell your friends and family, okay, this is what I do. And when you just choose what you are in like this is day one, like you have zero revenue, zero customers, you just tell people, okay, this is what I do, that the world will find a way to just help you. Like you will tell your friends, your family, and like the I don't know, you meet someone at the coffee shop and people will tell, okay, actually this is something I need help with. Um and like just our network was our very first channel and referrals, and then our LinkedIn. Like Briggy found very, very good content formats and like just her ability to break complex things down into simple terms and simple posts. I think people resonate that with that a lot. And yeah, so that was our thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with like, figuring out outbound as you go. That is like, that is what we're doing right now. We got started with our network referrals, then we added LinkedIn, and now we're adding outbound. And then later we, might add YouTube and other channels. I think it's just important to take it step by step, and not trying to do all at once because then you're going to be spread thin.
Yeah. And looking back at the early days, I know you mentioned like referrals and that kind of thing. Who were your first clients, if we were to talk about? Was it always B2B SaaS, or did you start off just taking, because most agencies, just take literally anyone on board to start with just to validate if the service delivery works?
Yeah, I think it's this is kind of an interesting challenge for everyone. I think our very first clients were B2B SaaS. Nowadays we're trying to we work with more types of businesses, not just SaaS. But I think to get your very first ones, you should just really take anyone who wants to work with you or is open to working with you. You even just do work for free. So you get the logo, you get the social proof. I think that's great. Our very first one was a paid project, but it was like very heavily discounted. But that's what you got to do. Like when you have no brand recognition, you're starting from scratch. That's how you get jobs in the beginning.
Yeah, 100% resonate. Like for context, to this day, still, we're doing one free clay table build out for any business that wants to hop on a call with us. But TNCs apply, they have to qualify based on some qualification criteria.
Yeah.
And that segues really nicely into, the next question I had for you, which is around the clay-based services. So, like, what kind of things do all of your best clients have in common beyond just them being in B2B SaaS? I know a lot of other folks that I've spoken to in the past talk about the size of like total addressable markets, that kind of thing. So, what are some of those like scars that you can say for any aspiring Claygency owners so that they don't work with the wrong clients? What are some common denominators that you see amongst the best ones?
Yeah. What everyone else, talks about, I think that's fair. If you want to do outbound, I think your customer has to have a significant total addressable market, which is, I consider it from the tens of thousands. Some people consider it hundreds of thousands as a decently sized total addressable market. Anything above like, I think 10K contacts, you can make it, scalable and have a clearly positive ROI for your customers. Yeah, average deal size has to be in the thousands, probably at least to make it work. For me personally, it's the vibe check. Like, do I want to work with this person? This is maybe the reason like I have a hard time delegating sales, and it's just like me doing sales for our agency right now. I cannot put a number on it. I cannot measure it. It's a feeling, it's a vibe. Like would I want to collaborate with this person? And sometimes we start a pilot project and it turns out no, they're rigid, they're excuse my French, they're a pain in the ass to work with. And then we say, yep, it's fine. We did the pilot, we learned a lot, and then like here's what we recommend going forward, but it's not going to be us working with you guys. So sometimes that happens. That's the main thing for me. I want to work with people both in our team and with our customers that I enjoy working with.
And you mentioned pilot projects there briefly as well. So I take it's a paid engagement, of course, and the way that you frame it to the prospect or to the client, it's basically a way to validate that our service delivery is effective with your business, right? How do you price that, or how do you productize that? So is it a specific time span where it's like a 3-month pilot, 1-month pilot? How do you go about creating those proof of concepts?
Yeah, most of the time we do 3 months. Sometimes I let that go when I'm pretty confident that, we can make it work very effectively in the very first month. So sometimes we do that. And that's it really. Like, I don't think anyone in this space like works with like very long-term commitments and annual contracts when they get started, especially. And I think that's fine. Maybe we do like discount or like a very, very well-defined and specific scope, especially when we do like more RevOps focused and enrichment focused projects. Yeah, sometimes a little bit shorter time frame, or sometimes a little bit of discount to make them trust you, or not even trust you, just they gotta have skin in the game. So like if anyone would come today to us say, okay, do free work, probably I'll say no, because that's like you gotta have skin in the game. An absolute just pure paper lead model is, I think, a bad example of that. So they gotta have skin in the game, they gotta be invested. But other than that, we consider this a shorter time frame or maybe a little bit of discount. So they see that we are a man of our words and we will do what we can and like what we say up front.
Gotcha. And you talk about, some of the better clients, and we talked about like the vibe check and that sort of thing. What would you say are some of examples of bad clients in terms of verticals and industries specifically? Like, I'll start from my side because I can contribute a bit to that. But on my side, like software development agencies typically have super bespoke and custom offers, be it like website building, they can basically do anything technical. That's quite hard to sell via cold email. You'll get plenty of demand for it, but realistically, the actual lead generation for them is really tough. Recruitment agencies, I personally quite like it, especially on the candidate sourcing side of things, because it's just the automation of stuff that works manually a lot of the time with Clay. However, I would not recommend it as like one of the first 5 or 10 clients that most service-based agencies work with, because a lot of the time you need to reinvent the process completely from start to finish, and you really need to understand the recruitment landscape, which for me took forever to understand. Like, I burned through a lot of clients over the last, God knows, like 3 years now to get to a point where I'm fairly confident with them now. Are there any other verticals, any other industries, Jani, that, you know, in your opinion, are not as attractive as, you know, B2B SaaS right now?
Yeah, I would have recommended the same. For example, one of our very first customers was in recruitment. Actually, what you mentioned, I think that's a fair point. If you work with recruitment companies to source candidates, I think that's a dream job because it's really just about the automation. On the lead generation side, it is pretty tough. The For both of the industries that you mentioned, the reason why it's tough is the offer is commoditized. Okay, I'm going to do recruitment. Okay, I'm going to you do custom development for you. Okay, like why or how or what's the scope, what's the price tag, it's all just like fluffy. It's not a clear offer. That's why I think it's hard to make that work. The other one that I think we had quite some success, but it is very definitely very hard. Cybersecurity. That the persona that you have to reach out to is just very security aware. Anything that's promotional, they just have this shield up immediately. um and I think our like kind of advantage in the beginning was that my background was, you know, with Bitrise, for example, and like highly technical products where the end user and the buying committee is really about engineers and CTOs. These types of personas are like they have a bullshit detector immediately. Like if you say something fluffy, they'll turn off. I think these types of personas, they want to test the tool. Like the reason we had some success with these types is we realized, okay, it's you can go with the same to the traditional or best practice type of call to action, like, you know, do you want to have a meeting, and like can I have 9 minutes with you, or anything like that. It's gonna work like, I don't know, once every 10,000 emails that you send out. These types of guys, like if you have a great product, a great offer, they will be open. They just gotta test it themselves. So they don't want to jump on meetings. So I think that would be like another one that if when I would get started, I'd probably try to stay away from that. And other than that, yeah, the same. Development is hard. Website development, design is very hard.
Yeah, I'm surprised because every time that I reply to cold emails these days, they're not even personalized. Like a lot of the time, someone just says, "Oh, hey, like, I saw you have a YouTube channel," which is super generic, right? And it's like some guy that offers you like YouTube Shorts or whatever. And I take them up on that offer because it's free to start with. And then before you know it, I've got a couple of thumbnail designers that design thumbnails for videos like this one. So yeah, it's mental that I don't think like you can have this debate about like relevance versus personalization, but 99% of the time, if it's relevant, you don't really need to personalize the emails to that extent in most cases. I want to move on and briefly talk about the acquisition channels. Like
Mhm.
I'll just show you what I prepared. It's basically like a super quick rundown that I wanted to cover, because typically most service-based businesses you can split into 3 simple parts, right? Like you have getting clients, onboarding clients, and service delivery. I just want to get an insight right now what you're doing in order to get clients, and if you walk me through how long you've been using all of these channels for in the first place. I've written them out as far as I'm exposed to these channels already. So for instance, I knew like for a year now that you have a YouTube channel where I saw a couple of videos before. I know yourself and your co-founder also post on LinkedIn. You just mentioned that you're doing outbound cold emails, so I know that already. I saw that you're listed on the Clay Experts directory as like an enterprise partner, right? So you're getting a lot of inbound through clay.com/experts page, which is the page with all the certified experts for those people that may not be aware just yet. You mentioned
Mhm.
referrals from existing clients, and obviously you're doing a bunch of speaking engagements similar to this one, similar to the other podcast episode that you recorded with Nathan Lippy from Playbook Camp. So I'm just curious, aside from that, did I miss anything? What are some of the other channels that you also are running?
Yeah. So yeah, no, I don't think you missed anything. Like, yeah, very first thing was client referrals. In the early days, that's the strongest channel. You can have word of mouth. It won't scale, but that gets you started. Then we got serious with our LinkedIn presence. I would say about a year and a half ago. Then that worked well for us. Clay expert page, we got there, I would say, fairly early. And that was a good source of leads. And I think this is kind of backwards right now, how people think about it. What people think today is, okay, I just need to get on the Clay partner page. I need to get the certification, the I don't know, outbound or whatever certification, and then I'm good. That's really just the first step. That's really just the starting point. If you get like today, you're not on the Clay expert page and your goal is to get on it tomorrow, I would recommend to think your strategy over again. You're not really going to get a lot of it. So you should just like, you shouldn't even spend energy there. So yeah, for us, referrals, LinkedIn, and now we got started with cold email about a month ago or like a month and a half ago. You're very, very early days. I think we're really good. We got started. We booked a couple meetings out of that. I don't know, 4 or 5 meetings.
And if you don't mind sharing a couple of like outreach angles or the thoughts behind some of these campaigns that booked in a couple of meetings via cold outreach already, what does it more or less sound like? What's the direction that you take with that?
Yeah, we do a lot of signal based in the sense that when people engage with our own content, that is a stronger signal that if someone just comments on anything. So when people engage with our content, that gets us fairly great results. People who are already on our website, those are the campaigns that I think performing fairly well. And then we are thinking about, like technology, what technologies they're already using. Is there any promotions, new hires? These types of signals I think are pretty good. The challenge with these is like they are oversaturated by now already. Like if you are going to like announce a new job on your profile in the leadership role in the space, probably you're going to get hammered in the next like 2 months with cold outreach. So these are the signals that I think are pretty good. My approach is you gotta have the signals, but signals only will not really gonna get you far. So you gotta have more generic but still relevant messages. But these are where I think you should get started.
Mm. Yeah, no, I think that's solid advice. Like for context, I've built a hit list of like top 10 thought leaders in the space. So Eric Nowotslawski, some of these big guys with a lot of, and based on that, I use like Triggerfy social signals to just create like a mini CRM of how many times they engaged with the word Clay, something like that. So my big belief, I only want to sell to anyone who's aware of Clay already. I don't want to do the education behind Clay. I don't want to hype them up because typically when someone's already had that dopamine spike and they understand the value of Clay, you're halfway there. It's so much easier to close the sale later on. Is that something that you can testify to, or do you still sometimes see yourself selling into businesses where they have no idea of what Clay is?
Yeah, I think most of the time you're right. For example, the great thing about the Clay partner page and the leads that came through. They are obviously aware of Clay and its capabilities. They just don't really know how to make the most of it. So they need a partner to help them. So that's a good thing. The hard thing about those, but it was always very competitive because you can bet your ass on the fact that if someone reaches out to you on the partner page, they're reaching out to like 5 other providers. But that's just how people work. Like they need several offers. I think in the grand scheme of things, you are right. We work with our clients where they own the infrastructure. So they own their Clay, they own their inboxes and domains. I think when you do the enablement part, it makes your services more valuable or like not necessarily stickier, because if you keep everything under your control, you might have a better chance of making them stay longer. But I don't think anyone will want to rely on an agency for such a core business function, lead generation, and business development. You don't want to rely on an agency forever. Obviously, our job is to do good work, deliver positive ROI, so they will stay long. but they will not, stay with you for like years. So in the grand scheme of things, I agree that it's easier when they're already aware, but you're going to be more valuable if you help them get the knowledge, build the muscle, build the systems, and eventually just step back and like, okay, this is the system that we built. This is yours. Just go and run with it.
Absolutely. I think one thing that's super underrated, and it's good that you mentioned that you guys basically get the client to maintain the sales tools and have the ownership on their side. Obviously, it's good cost-wise as well, because I've heard of a lot of agencies before where, your billing is around the corner, you are waiting for an invoice to be paid that covers the cost of the sales tools for the next month, but as always, someone is out of office, they don't manage to pay on time, and then it puts you in a really vulnerable position there as well. So I think it's really good to not bake in the cost of sales tools into your service fee. So in other words, you charge a service fee for your Clay implementation or whatever service you provide, and then get the client to pay for any sort of sales tools. On top of that, sometimes you may have the benefit of some sort of affiliate kickback where you give them special links with discounted links to the tools, and then you could have a separate like 10% commission on top of the service fee that you're charging. So I think that's really, really smart. Just because I really want to make sure that I cover absolutely everything. At what point did you realize that what you're doing with Clay, you need to package into different pricing options? Because you mentioned like doing lead generation as a service, doing RevOps. At what point did you start thinking about productizing, and specifically at what point in the monthly recurring revenue? Is it at 10K MRR? Is it at 20K? Is it at 30K? At what point did you really productize, and how did you go about that?
I think you can get to about 30 to 50,000 MRR without productization if you know your shit. But then it's gonna be a chaos. Like you're gonna be constantly working, burning yourself out, and doing slightly different things over and over again for slightly different customers, or just building something completely new from scratch all the time. It's just not going to be sustainable. So in that scenario, you have two choices. You hire someone very, very good, and obviously you will have to pay the price tag on that, and like you will have to give them a decent salary. Or you can get someone who's less experienced, so they come with a lower salary expectation, but then you have to create a very structured system and train them. So I think that's around the point 30 to 50,000 dollars monthly is where you have to start thinking, okay, now it's proved, let's say that it's working. I can sell this, I can build this. Now, how do I make it repeatable? And that's the decision. Like, okay, do I want to continue building custom and bespoke things for everyone who comes across my desk, or I just want to build a couple things and do that repeatedly? And I don't think there's necessarily wrong with any of those directions. You're just going to make up your mind. What is it that you really want to do, and what is it that you enjoy doing more? Creating one or like a couple of very sound and streamlined systems. Like, if we're talking about outbound, you got to build the infrastructure the same way all the time. The same providers, the same number of inboxes, the same number of domains, the same types of copy, the same type of list building process. Or you go, okay, we're going to build like custom from scratch, but then you got to attract the types of customers that want bespoke systems and want that kind of customization for higher price tags. You can do either, but you cannot do both.
Gotcha. And when it comes to the productization piece specifically, so for instance, I know like some similar agencies like Stack Optimize, for instance, they charge you based on the amount of emails that they send per month or the amount of contacts that they enroll. So they'll have one package where it's, I don't know, like X amount for 10,000 prospects. And then the job is to then upsell you as, send more volume to get you more ROI and get you hooked a bit more on the product that way. So they just basically just monetize purely through and productize mainly purely through the number of emails sent. And that's like their proxy in any of the pricing packages. I know, for instance, in my case, sometimes right now, I have some different products. So I have one where it's like just TAM mapping, where we identify every single company in your TAM. We add all the different, like custom signals, buying intents, and that's a separate product. What kind of productization do you have in place now? Is it similar to Stack Optimize, where it's like based on just the volume of outreach or the number of prospects or the number of Clay tables? And how do you go about productizing it?
Yeah. In the for a very long time, we just did flat fees. So we humped to the call, we understood the scope, what is it that they want to do. We estimated, okay, how many contacts are in this time and how many emails we got to send to hit that target. And then we created a flat fee for that. And then a couple of months ago, we went into the direction of what you mentioned with like stack optimized. We created a pricing model that is based on the number of contacts and the number of emails that we're sending, and people are heavily incentivized to send more with us because we know that when we have the opportunity to enlarge the total addressable market and increase the volume, we are in a better position to hit the targets that we have, and we're in a better position to retain them for longer. So in the beginning, we just got started with flat retainers, and now we are transitioning into a stage where it is volume based.
And I think especially if you don't take on the cost of sales tools in that scenario, right, you're just making way more money from sending 10,000 emails than you are from 5,000 emails. And of course, assuming that, you know, you're not just doing it the old way of like spray and pray where you just spam the hell out of millions of people, right? But that brings me nicely to, I think, in the diagram that I shared in the chat just now. So, by the way, I'm going to be giving away this diagram as well if you want to see the kind of like some of the processes that we talked about already. I want to talk briefly about the onboarding process as well. So, typically, most agencies that I've come across to date, their onboarding process is all the same. So, it starts with contract signature, then it's payment, onboarding form, and then sometimes you have an onboarding call, sometimes you don't. Is that similar in your case? Is there any sort of like extra spice, anything that you guys do differently when it comes to onboarding? Like just shed a bit of light on the onboarding process, because I mentioned it's the second stage of running the entire agency. So I'm just curious what your take on that is.
Yeah, I would say it's fairly similar. We have the same steps. We have the onboarding form. What I think is like a nice change that we did recently is our previous onboarding form was like the longest form ever. You got to ask the same types of questions that you ask during the qualification process. Who's your ICP? Who's the persona you're selling to? And so on and so forth. So we can build the time and understand, okay, is this a good prospect for us? Now we revamped it in a way that we do a lot of work upfront. We created a bunch of automations and AIs and custom GPTs internally for our own sake, where we do our own research. So even on the very first call, I go into the call with a very good understanding. Okay, I think based on all the information that I found about you online, on your website, on your LinkedIn, on your posts and whatever, this is the ICP I think you have. This is the angle that I think will work. This is, I think, your total addressable market size. Am I right? And then they will say, okay, yeah, this is right. That's not right. Here's how we fix that. Here's how we would change that. So we have a very good understanding even before they fill out a form or anything. So now our onboarding form is much, much shorter. So it's easier for them to get started with us because we do a lot of work even before hopping on a call.
Okay, I think one other question about the onboarding process generally is what used to break during the onboarding process? Because I can show my onboarding process inside of our Go High Level. You used to have like 98 different steps. And as you can imagine, when you complicate it beyond onboarding forms and contract signatures and that kind of thing, it just gets overwhelming. So what used to break, and did you have any sort of things that you had to remove rather than add to the process?
I mean, yeah, the reason why we went about creating our own research even before the first call with the client was because of that. Like we just had too many questions, too many details. We essentially need all of that. We just don't need all of that in one single point in the onboarding process. And like I felt the pushback, not people telling me that, okay, this onboarding form is bad. It's just that it took them like 2 weeks to fill it out. And then I had to just go after them, like, okay, have you had the time to fill it out? Like, we're eager to get started. We're excited at the opportunity. And like, I was just following up on them to like, okay, just enable us to do work for you, right? So that's why we like had to figure out and realize, okay, this process is bad. How do we make it leaner? How do we make it easier? So at first, we split the onboarding into 2 parts. There was still a bunch of questions about ICP, market, persona, whatever. And then there was a separate one for copywriting inputs, like, okay, here's how we compete against this competitor. Well, this is our offer and so on and so forth. So first we just separated that. And now we got rid of 80% of our onboarding questions. And we just ask, okay, how do you tag your existing customers in your CRM? How do you track open opportunities in your CRM? So we can use that for exclusion. Like we do a lot of work and we just really ask what's necessary right now. Who are going to be the sender identities? Who are the salespeople on your team? It's like very operational questions. The big thing I think us that I'm still like still trying to figure out is I do the sales, but I don't do the delivery. So I have to enable my team to get the same context that I got during the sales process and the discovery process, because there's a lot of things you will learn about them that is just not a black and white. Like it's not a spreadsheet thing. It's like we like nuanced information, and how I do the handover to our delivery team is probably the thing that that's the part that is the easiest or most prone to break, and that I think we still have a little bit of work to do. But yeah, other than that, just make it as easy and as seamless for your customers to go through.
Yeah, I found like we have like a client close form, which I'm sure is similar to what you do, where you have like a handover form. As soon as the onboarding form gets filled in, you fill in like all the details, and then you have like the proposal link, the Fathom note taker, the Fireflies note taker, and everything. So that's, the customer success and the go-to-market engineers can reference previous conversations. It's just those tiny little things that are probably the difference between, if you're just running everything solo or, if you want to delegate that. Final question on the onboarding process is expectation management, because I found this to be the absolute killer in most cases, because there, needless to say, a lot of people are promising you like 100 qualified leads every single day or whatever. The definitions are very loose of like what a lead actually is and so on. So how do you just go about just making sure that you're on the same page when it comes to expectations with the clients?
We forecast results very pessimistically and in a very conservative manner. So we try to underpromise and overdeliver. That's the thing. I see a lot of people post campaigns with like, I don't know, 10%, 20% response rates on email. I don't believe them, honestly. We have seen campaigns like that when it's like 100 people and like so highly personalized that you just cannot send that same email to a single and like anyone else, not a single person more. So there may be some campaigns, but it's not the average, and you should be upfront about that. Like I think there are overinflated expectations, and just because of the fact that most of our prospects have been working with an agency before, they have had bad experiences. You have to be upfront and like just say it's not a lot of people will want to hear, but if you over promise and under deliver, you're setting yourself up for failure a little bit further down the road. So if that's what it takes to close someone, then you better just lose that deal and not work with them. So that's just my take.
Yeah, I think one tiny little thing that I learned, assuming that the client's average ticket size is more than a couple of $1,000s, all it takes is one closed deal in order to break even or make up for the cost of working with an agency in most cases. In some cases, if you're an enterprise partner like you guys are, maybe you'll take 2 or 3 sales, but still, you framing that and saying, hey, we're not going after like tens of positive, whatever, replies or whatever it is. All it takes is 3 people to follow through the entire sales process. And that way you frame it a bit differently. And yeah, as you mentioned, probably not worth forecasting that they're going to get like 50 leads within the first 30 days, or you
Yeah.
pay them their money back unless you can, back up those claims, which is quite tricky in those cases. Okay, I think that's great so far. So we covered how you go about getting new clients on board. I'll be giving away all the different resources that I have about how to build like a LinkedIn personal brand, the kind of different posts that get you the most engagement, everything I learned through just trying to get clients on my agency side. The onboarding process has been great as well. I mean, that brings us really nicely to just talk briefly about the service delivery. There is just one thing that I really want to just really understand on
Mhm.
your side.
Every single thing that you can mess up in a hiring process or just trying to build your team, I committed that mistake. If you want to accelerate that learning curve, get a recruiter. One recruiter that I worked with recently is Noemi. Do you know Noemi?
I know,
It's
yeah, she's
great.
great. I'll add her LinkedIn, her website, like literally her everything. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
great. And she places top
she's
BPM talent for the top agencies out there and in-house roles as well. So I know she would be right to, yeah, to find the right
yeah.
BPM
That I
engineers.
in the very beginning, I so yeah, she's great. We worked with her to fill like 3, 4 roles by now. She's great. She'll get you great talent. In the beginning, I was afraid because she also works with like a lot of our somewhat direct competitors, and like I was afraid, like how isn't there like a conflict of interest or whatever. I just let that fear go, and she delivered great talent for us. So if you want to accelerate that learning curve, short answer is just get someone who did it before. Hiring, like just figuring out how do you identify a person who's good at this job. I think on the go-to-market engineering side, it's become easier to hire. Like I don't know, a year or 2 years ago, there was just not a term or not a person who is like, okay, I am a go-to-market engineer. By now, I think it's become easier to identify that type of talent. Yeah, just get help. And I know I'm in the beginning, it might seem a very steep price tag or an expensive investment. Just do it. It's better to spend your money than your time to like figure stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's worked for me, and for context, like right now, I've literally got, at the time of me recording this, I've got 5 full-time employees working. So you've got myself, I just run end to ends, pretty much like the sales side, and I still babysit a bunch of the client service delivery, a bit of
Yeah.
onboarding here or there. Then we have a customer success person, Marco, who's absolutely great at managing the customer success function from the point of client onboarding all the way through service delivery, upselling, everything of that sort. We've got 2 automations people in house that create all sorts of like custom automations. And then we have 1 GTM engineer. And to be fair, like the automations people and GTM engineers are very much interchangeable in terms of job titles, because a lot of the time, like, like in theory, GTM engineering requires is a lot more Clay heavy. But then yet again, a lot of the time you would find themselves go beyond the job description, as, any good hires go. If you had to hire people in the right order, and assuming that you're just doing this stuff solo and you can do a bit of everything like the client acquisition, onboarding, and service delivery, who are your first 2 hires?
Well, first, how we did it, we were hiring for a long time. We just hired go-to-market engineers. Building a team, building a business is always going to be about finding the next bottleneck. At first, it's client delivery. We need more go-to-market engineers to do like more work, run more campaigns for them. After a while, we found that building up the email infrastructure for those campaigns became the bottleneck. So we wanted to alleviate the go-to-market engineers from that process. So we hired a dedicated person who is just email infrastructure, nothing else. So this person works with all the go-to-market engineers and all the clients that we had to build the email infrastructure and run the placement tests and like just, maintain that. And then once the next bottleneck became client management, taking meetings, translating business objectives into actual campaign deliverables. Like, okay, this is the copy, this is the this is the list. So after that, we hired customer success manager or account manager that I think we should have hired for them much earlier. It's just very hard to find the right fit person. I think we also got lucky with the hire right now, but that was thanks to Noemi, as I mentioned. So you always got to find the bottleneck. If I unlock that, that will unlock a whole new world of opportunities. And by now, most of the time I don't really do client work. I'm much more focused on our sales and marketing processes. Probably our next hire is going to be around that. Like, and now I'm in the process of figuring out, okay, do I hire for sales first or marketing first or finances first? Because all of that sits with me right now. Yeah, so you gotta find what's your bottleneck right now, hire for that, delegate for that, but also you should only really hire and delegate for something that you have processized and like you have created systems for.
Gotcha. And I know there is a lot of hype as well right now around like Clay templates, and a lot of people give away Clay templates that claim to replace like hundreds of SDRs or anything of that sort. What are some Clay templates that you actually use on rinse and repeat, and you use that across a bunch of different clients versus you doing just custom lead generation with custom campaigns for clients? So what are some templates that some of the newbies, some of the guys that are just breaking into the scene now and trying to build some sort of processes just to reassure ourselves that, we're heading in the right direction? What are some of these templates that we should probably have in place inside of Clay?
I would say think about the smallest that you can define and like define that first. So for example, one standard step that I think you should do 100% is normalizing data, normalizing company names, normalizing locations. If you want to use that, normalizing the name of the person. A lot of people have, emojis in their name, for example, on LinkedIn. A lot of people have crazy long titles. and would say, if someone would, prospect me, my LinkedIn title says, I don't know, co-founder, Claygency partner, Ruth today, like this is a very long title. If I see that in a cold email, I know it's automated and it's a complete turnoff. So you should always normalize. Okay, how do you normalize? There is a standard process for that.
A lot of the people watching this right now, they would have heard of Clay. They are probably like self-proclaimed to be anywhere from beginner to intermediate level. They flirted with the idea of starting their own Claygency, or they probably offer it as a freelance service right now. What are some sales tools that you would say are critical to get a good grasp of at the very start, aside from Clay?
And if we're thinking about think with the tools and the technology hat on, I would say like get an instantly or a smart lead. It's a very low price tag, and you can send a lot of emails, and like you can spin up a very robust system for a very low price tag. Probably though, if I can take a step back and think a little bit outside of the box, if you have a $500 tech budget, I don't think you should really spend it on tech. Probably what I would do then more is get a sales navigator seat. It's like, I don't know, 100 or $200 per month. And then do things manually, like find the thing that works manually. And then after that, you can spend your time and money on automating the thing that already works. But when you are at that early stage, probably the money that you're going to spend on Clay or Instantly or ChatGPT or whatever tool that you're going to end up choosing, you're just going to burn that money because you have no idea what you want to do in the very early days. So my take is in the early days, do things that don't scale. Do things manually, have manual conversations, manual outreach. And once you figure out something that's working, okay, this is a good offer, this is a good persona, whatever, then only then should you start working on, okay, this is the tool that's best fit to automate what I already do manually.
Yeah. To be honest, I was not expecting that reply, but after hearing your logic for it, I'm all in for it, because otherwise, like, I've been there even now, like a lot of the time my Clay account just sits there and I'm not even spending all the Clay credits. And that's, we run it across a bunch of agency clients as well. So yeah, if you're just getting started with it, I don't think you should be spending that much money on all these fancy accounts. I know the reason that I brought you in for this specific call today was to just talk about your path of growing from like nothing to over $1 million in ARR. So the main question here is like, what actually changes between you going from like 5K MRR with just like one or two clients all the way through to like 80K plus? Like, what are some of the differences that you noticed?
If your goal is to build a business, build a team, build an agency, your role as a founder and CEO is to replace yourself. If you are not replacing yourself every 3 months, 6 months, you're probably doing a bad job. What I mean by that, in the early days, I was on customer calls. I was doing the Clay tables, the copywriting, and like the email. I was in the very, very early days when even there were like no email infrastructure providers. I was setting up SPF, DKIM, DMARC records. I was buying inboxes like manually one by one. I don't do that anymore because I was able to replace myself with providers and like other team members and automations. So I don't do copywriting anymore because there are better people to do that. I don't do client meetings anymore because there are other better people to do that than me. So right now I focus on building on the business, working on the business and not working in the business. So that's really everything will change. You should just work on replacing yourself every now and then. That's the goal. And then eventually, after a couple of years of doing this very diligently, and if you do a good job and you are, selling something that people need, you will be able to arrive to a stage where you have a sustainable business that you can take a little bit of a step back from, and you don't need to be in the trenches and putting out fires all day, every day. I think we're like in the middle of that process right now. But yeah, you should find the thing that you can delegate, where you have a good process for. Then you find the best person that you can afford to do that instead of you, and then you replace yourself and just give them space to do their best work.
Gotcha. I mean, that honestly, we covered so much. I know we're eating in a lot of your time, which, like, honestly, if you charge by the hour right now, I'll probably be broke by the end of it. And finally, to wrap it up, promises the last thing, Jani, if people are interested in working with your agency, or if they're just interested in you as, one of those famous people that they want to follow and subscribe to newsletters and all that good stuff, where can they find you?
Yeah, go on our website, growthtoday.co. Actually, this is a fun fact. After 2 years of working under the brand Growth Today, I just recently purchased growthtoday.com, which cost me more than I care to admit. But you should go on then growthtoday.co or growthtoday.com. And then, yeah, book a call. You've got my calendar over there. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Nice one. Well, I'll just end this call on one note from my side. I actually just purchased timjacobson.com because some other dude bought it last year. I literally had to spend quite a bit of money on it. Like at the time of me saying this now, I've just secured a broker who should be paying I think it's like just under $1,000 to get that, because I want to have like all my courses, all my business under one umbrella. And like the easiest way is just to have your name.com. And that's just one example of like, don't be an idiot. Just secure that domain to start with when you start a business, because that's one of those depressing things that, others don't tell you. Like for Christmas this year, when someone asked me, well, what did you get? I just, bought my own name.
If I bought growthtoday.com early on, it would have been $4,500. Now I paid $6,500 for a single domain.
That's not too bad, but it's not as bad as, another Claygency buying it and just redirecting it to like, growthenginex.com or whatever. So it's
it is what it is. I was like considering it for a lot of time. Like, why would I want to do it? And now I just think a little bit as like a long-term investment on it. Like I'm in it for the long term, and I thought it's just it's like I did the same. I just redirected it to our primary domain, which is the .co, and then it's just a little bit easier for our customers.
Yeah, well, that's really, really cool. Jani, thank you so much for coming on. Well, I already asked you a bunch of questions, so thank you so much. Guys, go follow Jani.
Really quickly, before you go, first of all, a massive thank you for watching this far. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Do comment down below any specific questions that I should have asked Jani, and do let me know who else you want to see on this kind of podcast-like series where I can interview literally anyone in the Clay space. As long as you tag them down below, I'm sure I can cold email them, cold LinkedIn message them, or ask my network to somehow get connected to any individual that you want me to interview going forward. More than that, make sure to triple check that you're subscribed to this channel, and please do me a massive favor and just check out the guide, which is the top link in the description down below. As I mentioned, me and Jani spent quite a bit of time putting that guide together to make sure that it has all the relevant resources on topics ranging from creating proposals all the way through to how to create pricing, how to become a Clay expert, how to complete some Clay outbound certifications, and so on. So just make sure to check that guide. That will be the top link in the description down below. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this one. Do give this video a quick like, and I'll see you in the next video.